It's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. Let's start the Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order. We will stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have anybody here for open forum today? Or anybody online for open forum?
Skip one.
Oh, open forum is after that. Excuse me, as usual. We're here to recognize retiring employee Carrie Coltis Hippis. Karen. I'm doing fine today, aren't I? Karen Coltis Hippis.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
I'm
morning.
Carter Griffin, the Division Manager at Crow Wing County Community Services. So yes, we are here today to recognize Karen Coltis for 36 dedicated years as a child protection social worker here in Crow Wing County. She is the most seniored staff across the campus. So from Highway Department to, we have 400 some employees? 500 employees, and she is number one has worked here the longest.
Wow.
So to put that into perspective, most of her child protection colleagues were not even born when she started.
I don't know if she wanted to hear that, did she?
She's owning it. So as you can imagine, over the 36 years, Karen has played an important part of our system, and she'll be missed by many. So I didn't want to just bring our comments. I gathered comments from some of Karen's fine colleagues. So this first one is from a guardian ad litem. Karen has worked hard over her long career. Not only did she make a huge difference, but she also impacted a lot of lives along the way. She possesses many talents that many are not aware of, such as gardening, musical ability, great sense of humor, wonderful acting skills, and most importantly, she makes the most delicious cheesy bread. I can attest to this. It's very good. And let us not forget her desire to learn a new word each and every day, and then to use that word appropriately in everyday life. Needless to say, they were not your normal, typical run-of-the-mill words and definitely required her to use them in a manner that all of us could understand. So no easy feat, for certain. Karen, she wishes you the best in whatever life has to store. Admittedly, she hopes that it includes some of your famous cheesy bread. Congratulations and happy retirement. That's from Tina J., guardian ad litem. The next one is from County Attorney's Office. As you know, we work very closely with the County Attorney's Office. So while over the past 12 years, I have come in and out and in again of child protection, one of the things I have always been able to depend on is Karen's commitment to children. She is professional, always prepared, willing to consult, open to hear options that may be outside of the box, and there to offer support when you need it the most. And let's not forget the amazing cheesing bread that she makes. But above all else, she is fair and is someone that I know I can always depend on no matter what. Karen, I'll miss seeing you both inside and outside of the courtroom, but I'm so very excited for you and what retirement will bring. You deserve all the good things, Karen. Congratulations. That's from Ann Soberg. So I guess in summary, just want to say throughout her 36 years, Karen has shown unwavering commitment and compassion. She's impacted countless lives and made a significant difference in our community. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Karen for her years of service and wish her all the best in her well-deserved retirement. Thank you, Karen, and congratulations.
Wow. So we would like a picture up front here, and we have your... Would you like to say a few words?
I could say a few, just a few. First of all, I didn't know what to expect.
All right. I didn't know what to expect today, hadn't made a serious inquiry about it, so I need to apologize that I didn't come prepared with cheesy bread. I would take this opportunity to just express my gratitude for my years of employment here. I have always felt very grateful for being employed straight out of college into a good career, solid career in God's country, and so it's been a good life here in Crow Wing County. And I have always credited my wonderful coworkers, but also senior management who do happen to be here today for my longevity. Thank you.
Are we ready? Want to take two more?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome. Great service.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank you. Enjoy your retirement.
Wow, that's a long time. Now to open forum. Is there anybody here for open forum that is not on the agenda? Nobody online?
Mr. Chair, no.
Thank you. Review and approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Francine, second by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Review and approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of items for additional business. There's two different items, but they're the same category. We have
Okay.
a Crow Wing County data practices policies that we would like the board to review and adopt during additional business.
And you want that on an additional?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
And, did you have anything else?
That's all.
Okay.
Motion to approve with changes.
Second.
Motion by Franzine, second by Coring. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion-
Second.
Motion by Franzine, second by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Land Services. Unless I'm missing something. Good morning, Chris.
I have one item for your consideration this morning. What we have is the final plat of Barbo Road Estates LLC. This is the final plat of Barbo Road Townhomes. This is located in Section 26 of the First Assessment District. This is a replat of Outlot A from Barbo Road Estates, a plat that was done back in 2021 off of Barbo Road. What you have before you today are 14 lots for this plat for the purpose of creating 7 duplexes with 1 outlot. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission back on July 18th of 2024, and then it came to you for your approval of preliminary plat on August 13th of this year, and you have before you today the final plat. Everything is in order as far as the ordinance and requirements, so that was approved for the preliminary plat, and recommend approval of the plat as submitted. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Franzine, second by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Administrative Services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
I'm here today to inform you that Crow Wing County received the GFOA, which stands for Government Finance Officers Association Triple Crown Award for 2022. Just to give you some background to that, what that means is the Crow Wing County received the Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting for our annual comprehensive financial report. We also received the Popular Annual Financial Reporting Award, as well as the Budget Presentation Award, which is also known as the Budget Book, for the same reporting period, which was year 2022. Crow Wing County has received the Triple Crown Award for years 2014 through 2018, as well as from 2020 through 2022. And I'm here today to recognize Corey Wiggins, our Senior Business and Financial Analyst, for her dedication and excellence in achieving the 2022 Triple Crown Award for Crow Wing County. For this award, Corey led the compiling and the preparation of the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, as well as the Popular Annual Financial Report. In relation to the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, I have a few statistics for you that are pretty eye-opening at what it takes, time and effort it takes to complete this report on an annual basis for the county. It consumed approximately 850 hours of Corey's time. When you factor that in at a 2,080 annual hours per year, that's 40% of her time that it takes to complete just this one report for the county. This includes 125 journal entries consisting of over 2,000 entry lines, and also 150 supporting work papers that need to be updated and completed in order to complete that final report. Corey began working for Crow Wing County in 2018, and the county has received the GFOA Annual Comprehensive Financial Report Award every year since she's worked with the county. So with that, I would like to present Corey a certificate of recognition, along with an enormous thank you for the hard work and dedication she has given to the county and in achieving the 2022 GFOA Triple Crown Award for Crow Wing County.
Thank you.
Corey, come on up. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to do another picture. Corey, do you have any words you would like to share?
I don't, but I do appreciate this award and the recognition that you guys are all giving me today.
Corey may not say it, but I'll add a couple of words to it. Crow Wing County is one of only 4 counties in the entire state that has received the Triple Crown Award for 2022. And nationwide, I think there are about 350, give or take, municipalities, everything from counties, cities, townships that receive this award. People want to look at the transparency of the finances. You want to be able to account for every last penny. You want to be able to look at all of the aspects of the financial history and the financial performance of Crow Wing County. This is the document. These, I should say, are the documents between the budget book, the annual comprehensive financial report, and the popular financial report, which I know everybody thinks, oh, a bunch of boring lines. I would really encourage anyone who has questions or wants to know more about the finances of Crow Wing County to look at that popular annual financial report that's posted on our website, because it contains pictures, graphs, data in a way that is much easier to understand than the multiple lines in the budget book. And Corey's work in this has been stellar over the past several years. The one year we did not get it, I will point out, other than Corey, the rest of the finance department had left us at that point in time, and Corey had a whopping 3 months, maybe 6 months of service with Crow Wing County at the time that the one year we were not able to meet the deadline to be able to get it done. Other than that, she's led a really excellent effort in this. So thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Debbie, I think you should be at the picture.
One of these days I'll get you in the back, Rosemary. Two more. Okay.
training you well.
Yeah, you're training me well. I've only got a few more months of this.
Wore out from all them pictures.
Thank you for that. And then we're on to County Sheriff. Is there somebody who'd like to come up here and speak in regards to anything happening in the Sheriff's Department today?
Everybody's looking
They're
at
all
each
looking
other.
back and forth at each
What?
other. Okay, who dropped the short straw here?
They told me today I just had to come to the meeting. They didn't say I wasn't have to speak, so. Craig Katzenberger, I'm the operations lieutenant with the sheriff's office. I don't have a lot to report on, and I wasn't really prepared, I guess, to report on anything. But do you guys have any questions for me at all?
I do. I attended a thing that was done over at the high school the other night. A gentleman came in and spoke. Could you tell us a little bit about that? That was
Yes,
at
so
Mighty
that-
Oaks?
Yes, that was the Chad Robishaw event, and I think, I don't have an exact number, I think we probably had between 400 to 500 people that showed up, so it was kind of geared towards veterans and then first responders is what the target audience was. It was, like I said, it was a great turnout. He talked for probably 2.5 hours, and I think it was a great event. A lot of positive feedback that we've heard from the
It
event.
seemed to be a lot about PTSD and stuff like that that I heard, and
Yes, just about his experience. He had, some pretty traumatic events that happened in his life as a result of his years in the military and then also in law enforcement.
right, yeah, so, because I know that that's something that law enforcement also faces.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
Any other questions?
Probably the only thing that I would suggest for the sheriff's department is whoever gets assigned here should be given a cheat sheet to come and talk to us about.
Yes, that.
Only to be fair to the
Yes, that would help.
individual.
I'm sure you'll go back and mention that.
I will. Oh, yes, I will.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
stepping up. Thank you. County Attorney.
I have nothing for you today, Mr. Chairman, other than what we'll discuss in closed session, which will be part of that part of the meeting. But I
Okay.
can certainly answer any questions.
Yeah. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the first item on the agenda is the Senior Management Team Report. We did not meet on Monday as we did not have any agenda items, so we don't meet for the sake of meeting. But the second item I have for you today is to set a public hearing date for a petition to vacate part of Hartley Drive, similar to the action that you took at a recent meeting on another road in unorganized territory. We've received a petition to vacate part of Hartley Drive in the First Assessment District. The petition has been verified and accepted by our office, and your action now is to set a date to hold the public hearing. We are recommending that the public hearing date be set for October 22nd at 9:15 a.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Franzine, second by Coring to set the public hearing date. All in favor signify, for what is that date again?
October 22nd at 9:15.
October 22nd at 9:15. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
That's all I have today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Aye.
Now we have preliminary budget and levy adoption. Good morning again.
Hello again. All right, I am here today to present the 2025 preliminary levy for the county board's consideration. Let me see if I can, Therese, if you can bring up the PowerPoint.
Except you gave it to me in a PDF, so I don't have a PowerPoint, so we'll just have to
Okay,
scroll through
so you'll
it.
take care of the scrolling forward? Perfect, thank you. So the second slide is just an organizational chart as to the levy funds we'll be reviewing today. So the levy funds for the preliminary levy consist of the general fund, the highway fund, the community services fund, and the capital projects fund. Below each of those headers are the different divisions underneath each of those funds. Next slide, we will move on to levy funds revenue. Before you today for your consideration is the property tax levy information for the 2025 preliminary budget. We're requesting a preliminary property tax levy of $47,741,458. That is a 3.99% increase from 2024. The other items listed on this table include other categories of revenues within the levy fund. So we have other taxes, which is we're projecting an increase of just over 6%. Licenses and permits, an increase of just over 11%. Intergovernmental revenues, just over 15% increase. Charges for services, a decrease of just over 11%. Investments, an increase of 143%. And finally, miscellaneous revenue, an increase of just under 4%. Bringing our total revenues for the 2025 preliminary budgets at just over $108 million, which is an increase of $8.6 million, or 8.64%. On the next slide is just a pie chart, taking all of those different categories into consideration so you can see what the different percentages are for those different categories. As you can see, property tax levy is the biggest piece of the pie at 43%, followed by intergovernmental revenues at 37%, and then we go to other taxes and charges for services, and so on and so forth. On the next slide, we have a bar graph showing you the property tax levy by fund and the comparison between 2024 and 2025. So we'll look first. The blue bar relates to the 2024 property tax levy amount, and the orange bar is the 2025 property tax levy amount. So in the general fund, it will be a 4.22% increase. In the highway fund, you will see a decrease of 4.34%. Community Services Fund will see an increase of 7.48%, and the Capital Projects Fund will see a decrease of 23.12%. Just to clarify, the reason that the Highway Fund is seeing a decrease is we transitioned $85,000 of the property tax levy from the Highway Fund to the General Fund, as the Facilities Department will be managing the contract services in relation to the snow plowing for the parking lots here on the Crow Wing County campus. And that was something discussed between Tim Bray and Jory Danielson before that change was made, and it was agreed to. As far as the Capital Projects Fund, that decrease relates to $300,000 that was transitioned over to the general fund, as the Capital Projects Fund had other revenue streams that allowed us to be able to utilize where the property tax levy dollars were not needed in that fund to fund future capital projects. The next slide just shows the levy fund expenditures in the different categories. So we have public aid assistance, an increase of 16% is what we're projecting. Personnel services, we'll see an increase of approximately 9.6%. Services and charges, a decrease of just over 12%. Supplies and materials, a decrease of 23%. Capital outlay, a decrease of 20%. Debt service, happy to say the county does not have any outstanding debt on the books, so that's at zero. And other expenditures at just over 0.5% increase. Total expenditures for the 2025 preliminary budget is expected to be just over $109 million, which is a $323,000 increase, or 0.30%. The next slide shows you the total expenditures broken out by the different categories in a pie chart format, so you can see who has or what areas have the biggest pieces of the pie. That would be personnel services at just over 53%, followed by services and charges at 23%, public aid assistance at 12%, and then followed up with supplies and materials, capital outlay, and other expenditures. On the next slide, we'll drill down a little bit further into the different service centers under all of those levy funds. So under the general fund, we have governance services, administrative services, public safety services, and land services, and then the divisions underneath those different areas. Under the highway fund, we have, of course, highway services and their divisions. Under the community services fund, of course, we have community services and their divisions that are listed. And finally, under the capital projects fund, we have the capital improvement plan. On the next slide, we're breaking out the service center revenues, again by service center, so you can see what that breakdown and what that increase or decrease may be from '24 to '25. So governance services, we're projecting an increase in their revenues of just over 8%. Administrative services, an increase of just over 4%. Public safety services, an increase of just over 2%. Land services, over 12%. Highway services, over 11%. Community services, over 13%. And finally, capital projects, the decrease of just over 14%. On the next slide is a pie chart with that same information, but broken down again by the service centers. So the largest piece of the pie is community services at 35%, followed by highway services at 22%, public safety services at 18%, and then followed by administrative services, governance services, land services, and capital projects. On the next slide, we have the service center expenditures. So again, the same service centers we're looking at on the expense side. Governance services, we're projecting an increase of 6.5%. Administrative services, an increase of 2%. Public safety, an increase of 2%. Land services, an increase of 13%. Highway services, a decrease of 11%. Community services, an increase of 12%. And capital projects, a decrease of 29%. And then a pie chart to correlate those expenditures based on the service centers. So on the expenditure side, community services has the biggest piece of the pie at 35%, followed by highway services, public safety services, administrative services, governance, capital projects, and land services. The next slide will look at the unorganized territory revenues. So the first part of the table is the first assessment district. The property tax levy amount that we're requesting is $1,334,449. That's a $75,456 increase from 2024, or 5.99%. The other revenue stream that the first assessment district has is intergovernmental revenue, which is the state gas tax, and we're projecting a 4% increase in that revenue source. For the second assessment district, we're requesting a property tax levy increase to $91,335. This is a $7,524 increase from 2024, or 8.98% increase. And then they also have an intergovernmental revenue stream with the state gas tax. We're projecting that to be a 3.5% increase. On the next slide, we have the unorganized territory expenditures. So for the first assessment district, we have services and charges with an increase of 15%. And then the next row where we have appropriations, that should say other expenditures. Appropriation is a component of other expenditures, but the appropriation amount is not the full $171,000. So that's other expenditures that relate to appropriations amount, which is $20,000, as well as highway maintenance and some interfund transfers. So we're projecting that expenditure category to be just over 68%. For the second assessment district, services and charges, we're projecting a decrease of 78%, and other expenditures, we're projecting an increase of 43%. On the next slide, we have a bar graph showing you the property tax levy for an organized territory, comparing 2024 to 2025. And you can see the blue again is the 2024 property tax levy, and the orange is the 2025 property tax levy. So the difference or the increase for the first assessment district is 5.99%, and for the second assessment district, we're requesting an 8.98% increase. And last but not least, we have just a summary of the tax levy resolution that is in your packet and for your consideration. It's the 2025 preliminary levy resolution. We're asking for a total governmental funds property tax levy of $47,741,458. We're asking for a first assessment district property tax levy of $1,334,449. We're asking for a second assessment district property tax levy of $91,335. And finally, the Crow Wing County HRA is requesting a property tax levy of $800,645. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So a couple of things, I think more or less to me to benefit the public. I'll start out with the unorganized territory. I know when people are listening, they're probably wondering, what does that mean, unorganized territory? Well, there's a lot of territory in Crow Wing County that does not have an organized township. Like, I live in Long Lake Township, you got St. Matthias. This is never organized, and you help me if I'm saying something wrong here, but it's never organized into a township. The people that live there obviously have the right to do that, but being that it's not organized, the county board is the town board for unorganized territory. So when we talk about FAD and SAD, probably somebody's thinking, what's that mean? So that's what that is. And then Nancy, can you just explain I think it would be good for the benefit of the public to understand that, we didn't just whip this up like in the last 2 weeks. Can you just say how the process, for the 2026 budget, we start that budget process right away in January, and it continues on. And even though we're setting the preliminary levy today, that doesn't mean that we're not done with the 2025 budget. The final vote will come in December, but we can't, when we set this, we can't go up higher than 399.
Correct.
But if we find other things between now and December, we can certainly bring it down.
Correct.
At that point. So,
Yep.
I don't know, just explain kind of the budget process, a simple version, if you don't
Sure.
mind. I think it'd be good.
Commissioner Coring, you are correct. We start this process in January, and that starts with doing some personnel projections to see what that's going to look like for the budget year that we're embarking upon. This year, we opened up budgets in March to give departments more time to start looking at their information, entering the information into our financial systems. That is due to us in financial services by the end of June. From the end of June to where we come before you today, all that time we're spent working on budgets consistently. Where we started, when we started this process, we were at a 16.41% levy increase, so I do want to bring that to your attention again because I think it's worth noting. That was where we started at. The levy amount was $53.4 million. We had 7 rounds of budget changes that we as staff went through to get to the number we're at today. And we brought that down by $5.7 million. So we're currently at the 3.99% increase that we're requesting for you to consider today. You are correct, Commissioner Coring. We do still make budget changes from when you adopt the preliminary levy to the final budget. However, we are mindful not to impact the property tax levy, not to increase that any further because we can't. We can't increase whatever you decide. Today, we cannot increase before the December meeting. So we still do payroll projections to see what those numbers are going to look like and continue to true up our numbers so it makes the next budget cycle a little bit easier. And then on December 17th at 6:00 p.m. is when we have the Truth in Taxation meeting where the public will be here, hopefully, to talk to the board with any concerns that they may have in relation to the budget.
Okay.
Did I address everything?
Yeah, that was great. And then, Mr. Chair, another thing, I think about this, people look at 399 and they probably scratch their head and wonder, geez, government seems to keep growing. I would remind people that Crow Wing County went for 8 years at a zero levy, which I think we should be pretty proud of. But I would point out the fact that Crow Wing County is a union shop, and it's all contracts that are negotiated with our employees, and obviously there's an increase every year. And then I would point out, I don't know if anybody watched, and I think it was WCCO or either it was Channel 5 on Stearns County, our county engineer. I don't know if you watched that last night, but they did a little segment on Stearns County on the cost of snowplow trucks. Each truck has gone up $100,000. They wanted to order 4, they could only afford 3. They've got 900 miles of roads to plow in the wintertime. We've got 600 here. So I would just say that, you know, I know nobody likes taxes. I hate taxes more than anybody, but people expect the roads to be nice. They expect the roads to be plowed. They expect Don, if we have any murders, thank God we haven't had any lately, but Don has done an excellent job at the county attorney's office. We've had a lot of that lately, and that all costs money. And unfortunately, the taxpayers have to pay for it. So I'm really happy that we got to this point, 399. Obviously, I think we'd all like to see it lower, but I think this is what we need to keep Crow Wing County running. And I think we've got a lot to be proud of here, that we have 0 debt. And I can say that I think we're one of the few counties out of 87 that are in really good shape. So, Mr. Chair, I guess that's all I've got to say.
Anybody else on the board have any questions for?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to compliment the senior leaders and the job that they did to work to get us down to this 3.99. I think it was, 7 rounds of negotiating with one another, because each one has their stressors that they have in their departments. They have to look at whether they can do it at the level they would like to do it at, or do they come together and meet the goals that the board has set. I think they did an outstanding job to get down to 3.99. Given the recent past where we've had to do some increases in wages due to the trying to retain employees and to recruit employees. So I think that was our biggest money problem that we had. I also will say this, and I know Commissioner Coring mentioned the unions. The unions don't drive every cost when we look at personnel expenses. They're one piece of it, but we pay everybody a fair salary, I believe, whether they're union or non-union. And even if we were a non-union shop, that group of people or employees would still want an increase in their pay. Nobody wants to work for less this year than they did last year, or the same as last year, because you're losing the battle with inflation. So let's remember that none of us value ourselves less this year than we did last year. So I just bring that up, but thanks to the senior leaders in our organization and the work that they did on this budget. So if there are no other comments?
Chair?
Yes.
May I just add a couple of comments? One thing I think that we should point out is that there were no new employees included in the 2025 budget. So it was one of the directives that the board had made early on, was to ensure that some of the actions that you've taken over the last year to help with retention of our employees and recruitment of employees when we have vacancies also meant that senior management members had to be willing to live within the means of what they have right now. That meant no new employees, and they all worked through that process. Not only were there no new employees included, there was a reduction of FTEs in the 2025 budget. So I wanted to point that out a little bit. I'd also like to point out the fact that Nancy mentioned the 2026 budget will start in January. It's actually already started. We are now tasking our departments with looking at a 5-year budget plan. We want to be able to predict with some reasonable certainty what are the next 5 years going to look like when we have settled labor contracts, when we know what some of the inflationary aspects might be looking at. We want to start looking forward so that we are making a very planful approach to how we address our budget. So those departments, while that work will start in earnest in 2026 in January, they're already working on putting that information into the software so that they have until the end of the year, I believe.
End of this year.
End of this year to get their 2026 through 2031 budgets included into that software for the finance team to start looking at that longer-term picture. Just wanted to add those 2 comments.
I think that's a really good idea, because it's something that we really, looking at it year by year, we need to be looking down the road, and otherwise we're just reacting to year to year. So I really appreciate you doing that. I'm sure that'll keep Corey busy for
It'll keep finance very busy for a while.
I think so. A lot of numbers to crunch there.
Yeah, and I do want to know, when you talk about employees and the process for the budget, 90 employees it takes to put this budget together, thousands of hours of time that everybody put into this budget and does it year after year. So I just want to make you aware of that it's not just finance, it's not just senior managers, it's a lot of people behind the scenes, and it would not be possible without them.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board? Thank you very much. I think we are looking for something.
Mr. Chair, with that, I'll make the motion to approve the attached resolution for the 2025 preliminary levy resolution for Crow Wing County and unorganized territories.
Second.
Motion by Barrow, second by Haug. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for the work you put into it. Next on the agenda, we have additional business.
Mr. Chair, before you today, we have two Crow Wing County data practices policies. One is to request data on an individual if they're requesting data on themselves and the rights that they have as a data subject. The other is with regard to data practices policies for the general public to request public data. I believe, Stephanie, is Stephanie Shook online?
She is.
Steph, do you want to talk a little bit about these?
I certainly can. So we have been going through, Darcy, myself, and Debbie have been going through the data practices policies that we have currently in Crow Wing County. At this point, currently we just had the data practices policy attached to our personnel manual. So we went through and met a few times. We used the model policies that were provided by the Office of Data Practice Management, and Darcy was able to go through those. We also, at this point, or several months ago, we started an actual data practices tab, so you can go straight to the website and use that to request your data. People can still go and come in person to request that information. I don't think there's anything that changes how we handle what we're doing. It's just making sure that we have policies that we can put up to our website and have available for anyone that requests it. And this just clarifies everything for the public with respect to data requests and how they should go about doing that, as well as their rights.
Thank you. So what we're looking for today from the board is action to adopt these two data practices policies so that we have a set policy in place and a standard for all of the departments if they're receiving any data practices requests.
Will all those data practices just go through one person then? So
Correct.
wherever department gets requested it all gets funneled to one person to report it.
So we are working through that process, and a lot of it depends on where the data lives, who's the responsible authority. For instance, if data is on a subject that has responsible authority through the sheriff's office is the one who is responding to that data. But by having these policies in place, it will standardize the way that the request is brought in, the way that the request is logged, and the response that is provided, the way that the response will be provided as well.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Don,
please do.
could I ask you a question? I don't know if you got an answer for this, or how can we, and I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to, I don't know what the right word is, strengthen our system of how, if some people have the right to ask for, do a data request. But what's happened is that data request stuff has turned into a cash cow for people that are using it not for a good thing. If somebody makes a human mistake here, then they're suing the county over and over and over again, and it's costing the taxpayers a lot of money. What can we do if you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but when a data practice comes in, do we just pour out all the data that we have? It has to go through and get redacted, I would assume, you know. How can we, I don't know. I guess I'm really frustrated that this is just being used, and it's bleeding the taxpayers of Crow Wing County dry by all these lawsuits from this. And I'm just wondering, do you have any thoughts on what we can do to make sure that we've got it bulletproof so that no mistakes happen? But obviously, we're all human, we make mistakes. So.
Well, I don't think anytime you have human beings involved in the system, you're going to have an error-free, perfect system.
You got your
doesn't
microphone on,
exist.
Don?
I do. Maybe I didn't get closer. Obviously, when you have humans involved, you're going to have mistakes, and it's not a utopian system. I wouldn't say that the Data Practice Act itself is bleeding the county dry or the taxpayers dry. The Data Practice Act is a statute that was enacted by the legislature to create a situation where people have the ability to request public data from their government so that they can see what's happening in government. There are different classifications: confidential data, private data, public data. Some data is confidential or non-public at first, like active law enforcement data, which when that case is done becomes public data. So it's a very thick statute. In regards to litigation, the Data Practice Act itself only allows people to access public data or data that's non-confidential data on themselves. So that in and of itself doesn't create that scenario. Other than that, I don't know that I really want to have a detailed conversation about litigation because we have pending litigation and I don't want to impact that, and we're going to have closed session on some of that today. Other than that, I really don't know what else I can tell you, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just that I'm really frustrated. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong as far as bleeding the taxpayers dry, but it's certainly every time one of these is settled, it just takes another bite out of the taxpayers to pay for that.
I will say there has been an increase in data requests in the last 10 years, a significant increase. It's not just here in Crow Wing County, it's across the entire state and probably across the entire nation. And as we become more technologically advanced, so it's easier to request data, I think you're going to see that still increase further, and this is our first step in an attempt to try to adjust the changes in the structure of how government functions.
Well, I just want to say thanks for our administrator and staff I think we're trying to streamline it so that there's one point where somebody asks for their data request and then they can take it from there to make sure that it's getting taken care of in a timely manner and we're going by the letter of the law in Minnesota.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Coring, yes, that is the intent that we are looking at, and these policies will help to make sure that we are being responsive to the requests the way that they are supposed to be responded to. So it sets parameters for those folks who are requesting data, and it also sets parameters for the staff who are charged with responding for that data as well. So it does lay out that process much more clearly.
I just have a question or maybe a comment. You know, it is public information, and we do have a statute that says that we release that public information, and we go through a lot of work to get that compiled and get it ready for that person. Are all requests made for public data? Do people actually come in and get it, or have we had requests made and after we've done our work and spent our time to get it ready for that person, have they neglected to come in and get that?
Mr. Chair, I will say that there are data requests that are made that do not, the person who, the requester who has made the request sometimes does not come in to review the information. So if the request is made to inspect the data, we will prepare the information and get it ready for them to inspect it. There are times when those folks do not come in to review or inspect that data. If someone is asking data to be sent to them, copies made and sent to them, we do require them to pay up front before we do send the data.
But is there any, you know, I mean, because they could get us chasing around an awful lot, spending a lot of time just to get us chasing around and not show up. Is there any way of, I mean, I'm totally fine with if somebody requesting public data to come in and get it, but come in and get it. If they don't come in and get it, and they keep doing that. Is there any way that we can do, Don, to keep that from happening? Because it expends a lot of staff time to get that ready to go.
Mr. Chair, I'm painfully aware of the amount of staff time it takes to do this and how much time it ties up not only in administrator's office and all the departments, the sheriff's office, our staff. I now have appointed one ACA whose one of her primary obligations or duties is data practices, and that's why she's working on this policy. There are different cases that have ruled on issues such as you have discussed, but again, we have pending litigation. I don't think it's a conversation I would like to have with the county board at this time.
Okay.
At the county board table. Certainly, we could, in the future, when appropriate, look at maybe doing something at a committee of the whole, or we could do a presentation in front of the county board. I'm just looking out for the best interests of the county and this board at this time.
Thank you. So that's all I had.
So then, Mr. Chair, we're looking for a motion to adopt the 2 data practices policies.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Coring, seconded by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Any other additional business?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple reports I would like to give from meetings that I attended recently. Back on August 30th, the Central Minnesota Emergency Medical Services Group met in St. Cloud. That's a joint powers agreement that Crow Wing County belongs to. Little context there, there's 11 counties that are involved in that joint powers agreement. They consist of, give me just a minute here, Benton, Cass, Crow Wing, Kanabec, Mille Lacs, Morrison, Pine, Stearns, Todd, Wadena, and Wright counties. And so we held our meeting. We were talking about the individuals that are first responders out there. That's the group that this joint powers agreement addresses, and the work that they do. These are private individuals who get trained, carry a bag thanks to a company east of or west of us that provided them, so that they would all have the same bags in our region. That doesn't cover the other 6 counties that aren't in our region, but the fact that they give their time, they're unselfish about their personal time, they're often the first ones that are on site. They don't get recognized for what they do. The training that they get is done on their own time. They're confused with, we often talk about first responders, so we throw in that category the fire departments, the law enforcement people, doctors. We're talking about the smaller group of first responders that actually are living out in the rural areas, who a lot of times are the first ones on scene when somebody's having potentially the worst day of their life. Currently, Marion Larson is our coordinator. She's in Stearns County, and as we've reported before, I think it was probably a year and a half ago, we were talking about that particular position, and the funding for her position is through the violations of seatbelts. The unfortunate consequences of that law is that people are complying with it, and so the revenue source is shrinking dramatically. And so we're looking at, what are we going to do? We have about 2 years of funding that we can count on in our fund balance to get through. So the challenge is, if we don't find a better revenue source, that position will go away. At that point, rural Minnesota, so it's not just the 11 counties, it's take the 7 metro out of there, so you got 80 counties around the state that are going to be sort of hung out to dry. You'll have to do it on your own if you want to do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but if you feel that that's important in the public safety realm, you will have to support, or we will have to support that ourselves. Currently, we have no money in that game. So what we looked at, and I contacted Representative Hewitt, he's out of the south of the metro, but he carried the bill for if you remember, the rural ambulance services. He carried that bill. He carried the one for the new Emergency Medical Services Department to replace the old EMSRB, which is Emergency Management Services, Medical Services Regulatory Board. I don't know that that's a good thing. It's similar to what's happening in DHS. So in attending our meeting, he acknowledged that that group is not set up, or that department is not set up yet, because we're asking about the effectiveness of it, why the change, is it going to be more effective than the old EMSRB group? He was unable to say yes, that would happen, and in fact, they won't even be up and running until the first of the year. So we're in a waiting position to see what happens there. We do have one young man, Dylan, I can't remember Dylan's last name, that we're recommending for their advisory board, who will represent rural Minnesota, because on the EMSRB board, the current one, we didn't have a representative from rural Minnesota. They're all from down in the metro area. So the second thing we asked about was funding sources. Are there any sources that he can think of? And of course, right off the top of his head, he could not. So what he's asking every member of our Central Minnesota EMS group is to work with our local legislators to help them understand the importance of finding a revenue source that is sustainable and not just going from year to year and using up the fund balance. Not overly good news, but I think there's a lot of work that can be done, and hopefully we can find something that will help us support that group. There never was, if you remember, I came before the board at one time and we talked about some opioid dollars going to this, and across the 11 counties there was not support for any of that, so that died of its own life at that point. So I'm not sure what the future holds for this position, but I will keep you informed as we meet. I'm going to skip my report on the Airport Commission at this point. Went to the AMC Fall Policy Conference in Alexandria. I attend the general government breakout sessions. A couple of the topics that we talked about was the tax forfeited properties. I think we all know what's going on there. Essentially, there was frustration, and having counties turned into realtors was the discussion that took place in the room during that time. Executive Director Doug Anderson, who heads up PERA, which is some of our retirement, spoke, and one of the issues that's coming about there is our 911 operators want to be thrown into the corrections bucket, and when you do that, there's a shortfall of funds, and how are they going to fund that, and they haven't got an absolute solution for that yet. I'm not even sure that they've approved moving that group over into the corrections retirement group, but so that's moving on. That's the biggest concern there. Otherwise, the funds are generally in good shape in that group. We had a presentation by HRA, and I want to note that Eric Charpentier presented from Crow Wing County. There was 3 other presenters there. He was the outstanding presenter of this group. He had pictures, he had information. Matt Hilgart, who heads up the AMC General Government Group, came up to me while he was speaking. He'd already spoken to several other commissioners about the quality of his presentation compared to the other 3. I hate to say that, but his was outstanding, and that several county commissioners wanted his contact information. Now, I know that we don't always support the HRA the way I feel we should, but I'm telling you, we don't want to lose him. They were all excited about finding out who this guy was, where he is, and how he operates his HRA. So I think there's an interest around the state for HRA. I don't know that it's, would happen in every county. So with that, I will end my report. Any questions? I sit for questions. I don't stand for questions, just everybody else.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
No questions.
We are going on to now any other additional business.
No other business.
Mr. Chair, I would move to go into closed session for pending litigation pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, subsection 3B.
Second.
Mr. Chair, and just for additional information, this is with regard to two separate litigation cases. One is Scheffler versus Crow Wing County, the other is Molly Vogt versus Scheffler, or versus Crow Wing County.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Chair, can you confirm
What?
which second you're taking?
You made the motion.
I did.
She made a second.
You seconded. Okay, motion by Coring, seconded by Francine.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are in closed.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Everything's up.
We're back in open session.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the settlement agreement reached at the August 1st, 2024 settlement conference in court file number 23-CV-1153.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, if there's nothing else before the county board, I would move that we adjourn the county board meeting for today.
Second.
Motion by... Three. Motion by Coring, second by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. We